And welcome back to JKLIVE here at Citizen Television, on with the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration. That is the heartbeat of the government. We've been talking about issues plaguing this government, from femicide to abductions to you name it, and banditry as well. And Dr. Raymond Omollo, the banditry was a really huge problem, I think, earlier this year. Now we don't hear as much. What's going on? What's the latest?
So Jeff, at the beginning of last year and towards, as we were progressing in the year, we were having unprecedented cases of banditry, castle rustling, particularly in the North Rift. And we ended up with a situation where schools were closed, people were displaced, and we lost lives beyond the heads of cattle and the goats and sheep. But progressively working with all the players, including the communities, we have been able to pacify the North Rift. We have essentially been able to silence the guns. We have a few isolated cases, but they are found in between. And our success has largely been attributed to our ability to bring all the different actors, particularly the security players, the National Police Service. We've had support from the KDF, primarily in terms of assets. We have also had what you're calling the National Police Reservists, who are technically the locals whom we've been able to train and arm, so that then they become like our first line of responders in terms of the banditry situation. Then the national government administration officers, the chiefs, the village elders. Now all these have really played out to help stem the situation that was actually getting out of hand. Today, we have half of the schools that were initially closed reopening, with the half that we haven't been able to reopen being primarily in parts of West Pokot and Turkana. And then we've also been able to rebuild the infrastructure, working with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Defense in 21 out of the 26 schools that were worst affected by banditry. And we are expecting that when schools reopen in January, we should be able to have all the kids go back to school. But then it's important to understand what are some of the issues that are pushing us towards this. One, of course, are the cultural practices that have been there over time. But then there's also the issue around competition for resources as a result of climate change. And what we are doing as a government, beyond the immediate interventions that I've just mentioned, is also to work on a Marshall Plan that then is going to help us build the infrastructure around these places, the social amenities beyond schools. We are looking at markets, we are looking at health centers, and also opening up roads, because again, for the better part of these areas, some of the roads are completely inaccessible, making it difficult for even any intervention to be made. And that has made the menace over the years to thrive.
And those roads that are accessible, according to the Maraga report, is that sometimes allocation of fuel, let's say, basic things, monthly allocation of fuel, 450 liters. I mean, come on, irrespective of areas or territory or how far, how does one handle this?
Yeah, so looking at some of the recommendations that Maraga team came up with, is that up to this point, we are having a situation where the allocation of fuel has been uniform across, which is not fair, particularly in some of these vast areas. And what we are now doing is to look at the distances that officers cover, so that then the allocation becomes commensurate with those challenges around distances that must be covered. Of course, beyond that, then there's a bit of investment that we have made in the equipment as part of the modernization plan, so that we are getting more armored vehicles, which are well suited for those terrains. We are also using a lot or relying a lot on technology just to help us to...
Technology like drones and stuff like that?
Yes.
And the equipment that the guys will get, it's being allocated?
Yes. So, and we are working on a 7-year modernization program. We are actually in year 2 of that particular program. So all this, when you put them together, alongside the other recommendations around capacity building of officers in terms of the training, in terms of the promotions, because we are having a situation where officers will stay in specific ranks for as close to 10 years, which is completely unacceptable. Then within the space of healthcare, we are also paying a lot of attention to mental health.
Yeah.
We spoke about this earlier in the show, but we realize that globally, when you look at the WHO report, 1 in every 8 human beings have a mental illness or situation to deal with. Yeah. And the police are no exception to this. So there's a lot of emphasis to try and address that gap as well.
Speaking of police and officers, I can't let you go without asking you about our officers in Haiti. We've got 400 right now.
Yes.
There's probably another 600 that are heading there at some point. Yeah. This is mostly funded by the U.S. There's a new administration coming into the U.S. in about a month's time. First of all, are our officers safe where they are, and are they being paid regularly, and will they stay on?
So Jeff, first of all, how did we even find ourselves in Haiti to begin with? So we were responding to a humanitarian crisis, and on the request of the United Nations, we did, as a country, offer our officers. Part of it is based on our history in terms of our interventions in situations like Haiti in other countries. And then beyond that, it's part of our responsibility to humanity. And while we expect to take up to 1,000 police officers, which is part of the first deployment, I want to reassure the country and everybody else that the officers have done an incredibly good job up to this point in time. They are safe. There have been reports, again, unfounded, which we've been able to confirm to the country. Most recently, there were talks of officers resigning. Nothing like it. They are safe, and the people of Haiti appreciate, including the administration there. With regards to the expected changes in the leadership of the United States, because U.S. has been a strong voice, and we've worked together in this particular process. So far, there is no indication that there will be a change in that mission or engagement. Yeah.
And they're being paid? Welfare is fine? Everything's okay?
Yes, the payments are being made. Maybe one thing I would want to speak to is if you look at how, for example, our colleagues in the Kenya Defense have operated, is that they've been able to establish what you're calling a peace fund. Now, the way the remuneration and compensation is done, because this comes from UN, we claim and then there's a processing time. So there's always some lead time. And we are looking at establishing what is similar to what is happening with the defense forces for the police, so that then we always have a buffer before we get the reimbursement and before we get the claims, then the officers are paid in time. And part of the lag time is because the money is sent in dollars, then of course there are reports that we must submit. So you end up with a delay of a week or two, but as it is, every officer who is in Haiti is being fully paid.
So those rumors we keep hearing of officers resigning and all that stuff, that's just Ioni Siasa?
I wouldn't say it's politics, but for me, I would just treat them like any other fake news. And we are in the era of fake news, where people decide to use one technology not in a positive way. But then also there is also the general apprehension that, number one, you remember when the mission was beginning, there was a lot of worries whether it was going to even go beyond a week. Now we are months into this mission, and if you look at the reports that are coming from Haiti, is that our officers have done well. And we really must commend the officers for the sacrifices that they are making on behalf of all of us. And it makes Kenya look good, not just in the eyes of Kenyans, but the international community.
All things being equal, we're at 400 now. Are we going to extend it to the 1,000 that was promised? Is that the goal?
Yes. Actually, the next contingent has just finished their preparation. We will need to be getting them ready to move.
So far, the mission was about $600 million, $300 million by the U.S., the other by the UN.
Yes. So there's a kitty that that the UN is running, and all the contributions from other countries outside the US goes into that kitty, and it's meant to sustain the mission.
What if the Republicans refuse it because they have the majority in the House and Congress and the White House and the Supreme Court? They have the majority. What if they refuse?
I think as a country, we've basically made assessment and we are ready for whatever scenario plays out. At the end of the day, we have a responsibility to our officers to ensure that their sustainability in the operations in Haiti is fully supported. And if for whatever reason the United Nations, which actually requested Kenya to participate in this mission, feels that time has come to an end, we will do what is expected. As great as this mission is, Dr. there's some people here at home who still insist that, there are schools in some parts of the country, that in Baringo especially, and Samburu, that remain closed. And we're sending soldiers 10,000 miles away to take care of a country that, many people can't even pronounce or point out on a map. Does that make sense? Some people ask. Jeff, the reason why these schools are closed, and I've mentioned there are just about 13 of them, is not that we don't have police officers in those places. So the two are completely distinct matters. Part of the reason why the schools were closed largely is on account of the security situation, which we have been able to manage. And we expect that when schools open in January, those schools will be ready to take in the students or the pupils from those areas.
All right, let's come back home. And since June 25th, the very famous or infamous date, Gen Z demonstrations in the heart of the city, and there was a lot of chaos and a lot of things went really, really wrong. And then abductions started. And a lot of people have complained from then that their loved ones have not come back. Do we know how many Kenyans have been killed or abducted?
So, Jeff, when you look at the events that followed the demonstrations of June 25th, one, we must admit that these were very unprecedented times, because even in terms of the manner and the format of the protests and demonstrations was something that we hadn't seen before. And therefore, there was a fair amount of challenge in terms of dealing or even handling the situation. Subsequently, of course, there have been complaints or reports of what we are referring to as abductions. In the operation of the police, what the police do is to do arrests. The police are expected to identify themselves, and those who get arrested are either taken to a police station, you are charged, or you are given a bond. you're processed through the court processes. Now, where people disappear, what we expect is that then those get reported and we are able to then follow up within the police structure. Now, throughout the period of protest, we recorded, unfortunately, 42 fatalities. And then there were injuries, which happened to a number of Kenyans, including the police. There were properties that were destroyed. And a lot of these things, for me, are events that we should learn a lot from. And it must help us going forward in terms of how to manage situations like what we had, but also in terms of the public expressing and also raising the issues that there are. So there was a lot of learning points in the whole situation. Now we have just within the new constitutional dispensation, we have the accountability mechanism within the police. So internally, there is an internal affairs unit within the National Police Service. Then, of course, there is the Independent Police Oversight Authority. Yeah. And also, this is against the backdrop that, again, for the first time, the National Police Service has its autonomy with the Inspector General taking responsibility in terms of command and control, the issues on financial autonomy, and the operational independence. And as the Inspector General of Police and the entire infrastructure within the police exercises this responsibility, we still have the accountability mechanism that must also kick in. So far, IPOA has done a good job. If you look at even the cases that they've been able to take to court, or the cases that are they are investigating, it's just a demonstration of how well they are doing in that space, and also they're doing this on behalf of the country. If someone can ask you, of the 42 that you just said that were killed, how many were police related? Do we know? I'll need to check what the association was with the direct relation with the police. But again, when you look at the reports by IPOA, there are about 30 cases, not necessarily locked to the demonstrations, but over the last 1 year that they've been able to prosecute successfully. And if you look at it in that way, then you can be able to say that there is a very good amount of accountability in terms of individual responsibility, but also in terms of the checks and balances that exist within these independent institutions. Now, Jeff, on the other side, we need to appreciate what other aspects of the positive things that we have been able to see from the National Police. If you look at the statistics, there's been a fairly reduced amount of number of incidences of crime that has been reported this year comparatively to the previous years. There is a much broader sense of acceptability that our security situation is fairly okay, except in certain isolated cases, particularly in urban areas. And if you talk to Kenyans, or if you engage to Kenyans, I remember there was a time even walking on the streets of Nairobi was a big headache. Today, that situation is much better. We've talked about what we've been able to do in the banditry space. Then there is a conversation or the challenge around terrorism. For the last 2 years, we have not had very bad incidences or experiences with the terrorism. The north and northeastern and parts of coastal region have fairly remained calm. And we must credit our security officers for having done a good job and keeping the country to that level of safety. Maybe you've had incidents, but you just don't let us know. You don't report, you don't advertise them, you don't... And I say the isolated incidences, which we have been able to manage, and the security officers have been able to manage. And the fact that there isn't the huge uproar that would come when incidences of terror happens, it tells you that there's been a lot of work that has gone in. And in those isolated cases are more of where we have been able to suppress those cases that would have otherwise been very fatal.
Is Lamu calm?
Lamu is calm.
Bonny Forest, is that contained?
Bonny Forest is contained. Of course, we continue to pick a lot of things. Our intelligence officers have been able to preempt a lot of those.
I want to talk more about that. We haven't talked about abductions, Dr. Ari.
So
hold on. Got to take a break. Got to pay some bills. Hold the thought. Principal Secretary for Internal Security, and National Administration, Dr. Raymond Omollo, on the bench tonight. We're talking issues, folks. It is the eve of Jamhuri Day, so we're talking about the state of the nation's security. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? What are your comments? Keep them coming. At Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back. And the magic wall in the moment.